There is a saying that every minister really just has one message to share with the world, and every sermon they preach is at heart just about that one message, which resonates with me because my one message is radical welcome. The ministry I'm called to do in the world as a queer and trans itinerant preacher and educator is to help people unlearn and heal the barriers that keep us from being in real relationship with each other across lines of difference. Radical welcome is a spiritual practice that helps us do that. And I probably preached about it the last time I was here, but I'm going to have another sermon about my same one message for you today. So that's how it works when you're an itinerant preacher. But the truth is, understanding welcome as a spiritual practice that helps us be in relationship across lines of difference, that's not actually the easiest thing to do, right? Either to understand it that way or to practice it that way. But I could not more strongly believe that our survival as individuals and as a species depends on it. So I want to talk to you today about what radical welcome really means and requires. Are you on board? Okay, a couple of you are. I can hear you. That's good. Hopefully the rest of you will jump on board as we go. The first thing I want to do, though, is tell you a little bit about my parents. Like so many Unitarian Universalists, my parents found this religion of ours when they were searching for a new spiritual home where they could raise their kids. My dad is the son and grandson of Presbyterian ministers, and my mom was raised a devout atheist in small town Wisconsin in the 50s and 60s. When I was 6, they found UUism, and they are still part of the same church they joined 35 years ago. I think of my parents as the quintessential Unitarian Universalists. They came from previous spiritual paths that didn't fit them. They are white and middle class and in their early 70s, and they both have higher degrees. They're teachers and artists. My dad was an environmentalist way before it was cool. They listen to NPR and read the New York Times and own 2 cars and a house in a suburb. They're politically active and vote Democrat. Sound familiar? I think of my home congregation as the quintessential UU congregation as well. It's full of wonderful, kind people, most of whom are white and middle class and higher educated and politically liberal. Church members do a volunteer shift at a soup kitchen once a month downtown and always turn out for their neighborhood river cleanup. They're very proud of the rainbow icon on their road sign and the solar panels on their roof, both of which ruffled feathers in the surrounding suburb. I'm so grateful that my parents joined my home church. It was a wonderful place to grow up, and it gave me so many gifts, so much freedom to explore what I believed about the world, about myself, about that which is greater than ourselves. It gave me such a strong foundation in the conviction that our purpose is to leave the world better than we found it and to work toward liberation from oppression. And yet, allowing me to exist and not actively making it harder for me to be myself was not enough for me to feel a sense of unconditional welcome and belonging in my church as I grew into adulthood. Nor have I ever felt that way in the dozens and dozens of UU churches that I've been to since. I've never felt like any of them were places where I could fully get my spiritual needs met. This is particularly hard because I was raised here. This is my religion. You would think that those of us who are raised UU would be the ones who would feel most at home in our congregations, right? But the truth is really hard to face. The vast majority of those of us who are raised in a UU church leave. You see, my parents' church is not my church. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that, but before I do, I want to tell you a little bit more about my parents. I love them dearly. They aren't perfect, but I've never questioned their love for me. And they've given me so much: a great childhood, a college education, and acceptance that has grown into appreciation for who I am, even though I am not the person they were expecting when they were raising me. When I was growing up, my parents' world was a reflection of themselves. Their friends were all people like them, people their age, their race, their class. Our church was a reflection of my parents' world as well. As the quintessential UUs, they fit right in. It was easy for them to feel a sense of total belonging, almost like our church had been made precisely with them in mind. As my sister and I grew older, it became clear that our parents expected our lives to look like theirs without being consciously aware of it. They had so many unconscious assumptions: that we would get master's degrees, own houses, be upwardly mobile, that we would have friends and partners of particular races, classes, abilities, genders. Of course, they had these assumptions. They wanted the best for us, based on what their own lives and cultural contexts had told them the best is. But my life and my sister's life don't look anything like our parents' lives. Our people are not their people. My sister married a man from Nicaragua who immigrated to Milwaukee to be with her. Spanish is the primary language in their home. Theirs is a multiracial, multilingual community of friends and a huge, vibrant, extended Nicaraguan family. My community is also a multiracial, multilingual one, a community of queer and trans people of many faiths, many ages, many abilities and disabilities. Like my brother-in-law, my partner is also working class. He's a generation older than me, and queer and trans and in recovery, and a long-term survivor of AIDS. Our given and chosen family bridges almost every facet of difference I can imagine. It's hard for any parent to let go of the framed picture that grows in their mind's eye of what their child's life will be like. It was particularly hard for my parents to grasp that their experience of the world does not translate to the lives of their children. That in order to be in real relationship with us, they had to let go of all the things life had taught them about who and what is most valuable, what success looks like, what the best for their children is, and get curious about what our worlds are like, what our needs are, what brings us life. At a certain point, I had to say, look, I want to be in real relationship with you, and I know you want a real relationship with me. And in order for that to happen, I need you to stop making assumptions and start asking questions. I need you to be curious about my life and how it's different from yours, and what a difference those differences make. I need you to respect my truths. If you can't do this, we can still talk and see each other and be friendly to each other, but we're going to be people who talk about the weather. Because we are so different, real relationship takes more than just being friendly to each other. It takes actively engaging with our differences and doing the hard work of unlearning our assumptions. Now, my parents didn't have great relationships with their own parents, so they didn't have good models for what it would be like to have good relationships with their adult children themselves. I think Unitarian Universalism is the same way. If the quintessential UU, like my parents, came here from somewhere else, they might not have good models for how to be a religion whose children don't leave. Did you catch that? If most UUs have fled churches that they didn't fit into, they might not know how to create a religious community where people who are different from them don't leave. It's not that our churches aren't welcoming, right? Of course they are. But a warm smile and not being told I'm going to hell isn't enough, right? It takes a little bit more than that for me to want to come back. for my spiritual needs to get met. I need more than friendliness. I need radical welcome. So what do I mean by radical welcome? Well, I want to share with you a really powerful model that helps explain it. And if you've taken the program Trans Inclusion in Congregations, which is led by me and my bestie, Reverend Michael Slack, and I know a bunch of you have, so thank you for that. Those of you who've taken it will be familiar with this model. It comes from Reverend Canon Stephanie Spellers, who's a leader in the Episcopal Church. And she talks about 3 ways that welcome shows up in congregations that are actively seeking to be welcoming: invitation, inclusion, and radical welcome. So invitation is represented by the open door. Everyone's welcome, come on in. But there's an invisible asterisk after that phrase. All are welcome if you leave your sins, like your sexuality, at the door, right? All are welcome if you don't need a wheelchair ramp or closed captions or a fragrance-free environment. All are welcome if you're able to make a financial pledge. Invitation says, we are a like-minded community. If you're like us, join us. The effort is friendliness and inviting newcomers into existing structures. The expectation is that everyone who comes in will be like us and real comfy with how things are done here. The inviting congregation wants to grow, but only with people who are like us. So it's largely homogenous because people who can't fit in with those expectations leave. Make sense? Inclusion, that second type of welcome, is represented by a desire for diversity and surface level attempts to acknowledge people who are different from the norm. So we might march in pride, but we don't have a gender neutral bathroom. We might put up a Black Lives Matter banner, but on Sundays we only use music and readings by white people. We might fill our website with images of children, but when parents with young kids attend, they get disapproving looks when their kids make noise during services. The inclusive congregation says, we make space for people who aren't like us. Inclusion means a congregation wants to be a place where different sorts of people feel at home, but it puts the burden on them to find a way to fit in with the way things are here. It isn't completely homogenous, but it doesn't acknowledge what a difference our differences make. So people on the margins struggle to experience full belonging and often don't last long. There's a clear us and them. Radical welcome is the practice of being transformed by relationships across lines of difference. Every time a new person visits or a new child is born into the church, those new people change our definition of us. We constantly practice curiosity about the different perspectives and needs within and outside our church and how they can influence the very core of who we are. The radically welcoming congregation says, we are people of all experiences, identities, and backgrounds. All of who you are belongs here. We value truly mutual relationship. The goal is to be constantly transformed through our encounters with one another. Everyone contributes to the way we do things here. The radically welcoming community is truly diverse. There's no longer any them. There's only us. If you're here, you're one of us. So, to review, invitation is a Facebook post that says, I'm having a dinner party, everyone's welcome, right? Inclusion is an email that says, you are invited to my dinner party. I'm making lots of pasta. I hope you come. Radical welcome is a phone call or a text that says, hey, I'm thinking of having a dinner party. When are you free? What do you like to eat? Are you vegetarian or gluten intolerant? Do you use chopsticks? Where should we gather? Do you feel the difference? The difference is relationship. Now, the temptation is to see this model as 3 stages, but that's not how it works. You see, inviting congregations think welcome equals friendliness. So as long as they perceive themselves as friendly, if folks don't feel welcome, they must not belong here. Inclusive congregations think welcome equals surface level efforts to acknowledge difference. So as long as there's a rainbow flag or a ramp or a once-a-year gospel service, if folks don't feel welcome, that's their fault. So invitation and inclusion are actually barriers to radical welcome. To the radically welcoming congregation, welcome means transformation. It means constantly seeking to expand our definition of us and removing the barriers that some of us face. The only time I've felt radical welcome, unconditional affirmation, and deep spiritual connection in UU spaces was when I was a teenager. Things were hard as a teen. I didn't yet have language to describe who I was, to myself or to anyone else. I struggled with depression and anxiety. UU, youth space, was my saving grace. In those spaces, I truly felt the saving power of this faith. As teens, when we worshiped, we co-created it, we worshiped in the round, and oral tradition songs were the bedrock. We got close or held hands. We sang rounds and we made up harmonies, and no one ever knew when the song would end. It just ended when it was done. It was so embodied. It wasn't about thinking. It was about feeling and being together. Can you imagine what it was like for me to supposedly grow up and be expected to worship with the adults, with their rows of chairs and their hierarchical leadership and their orders of service and classical music? Invitation says, come worship with us, the adults, exactly the way we do. Inclusion says, once a year we invite the youth to lead worship and we let them put the chairs in a circle. Radical welcome says, what would it mean if both cultures, youth culture and adult culture, informed how we worship? What would change? I need radical welcome because my Unitarian Universalism isn't the same as my parents' Unitarian Universalism. You see, being queer and trans and raised UU means my cultural context is different from the culture of the average UU church. My flavor of Unitarian Universalism is different than the central flavor of the average UU church. My identities affect everything for me. My understanding of family, my relationship to social justice, the ways I build community, my spiritual practices, my spiritual needs, my spiritual gifts. I can't truly feel at home without having these truths affirmed. And my friends, I am haunted. I am kept awake at night by the question, who would we be? What would Unitarian Universalism look like today? And how would it be practiced differently if all the thousands and thousands of young people, queer and trans people, people of color, poor and working class people, disabled people, immigrants, indigenous people, neurodivergent people who have been drawn to this religion or raised here, who would we be if all of us had stayed instead of the vast majority of us leaving, disappointed and disheartened because there was no room for our flavors of Unitarian Universalism, no room for us to inform how this faith is practiced? I am also haunted by how much my people, queer and trans people of all races, classes, disabilities, and other backgrounds, need that saving power of UUism right now. We are living in a truly terrifying, life-threatening time for trans people, where the far right has made us a centerpiece of its political strategy and has spent hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on anti-trans disinformation and political attacks. lying about us and working to quite literally make it illegal to be trans and illegal to support trans people in being ourselves. I need to know that the religion that has told me and the rest of the world that LGBTQ people are welcome here, I need to know that my religion has our backs and will do the work that it takes to become places of belonging for us in this moment. And yet, I constantly hear from trans and non-binary UUs that they feel the opposite of belonging, that people are friendly to them while also refusing to even try to use the right pronouns for them. That they see rainbow flags all around their congregation, but every Sunday they have to brace themselves for harmful comments about sports or medical care or biological essentialism, comments that deny the reality of trans people's very existence. You see, becoming a place of belonging requires radical welcome, being changed, altering our understandings of gender, opening our hearts, expanding our worlds and our practices of worship and community by getting into relationship with people who are different from anyone we've ever known before. The moral panic and civil rights crisis that's happening right now depends on fear. It depends on convincing people who aren't in real relationship with any trans folks to believe lies about us and to believe that our basic needs are threatening to theirs. Being a welcoming congregation means we have made a commitment to being changed, transforming our understanding of us until all the trans people who are drawn here or raised here are part of our definition of us. Now, what I need you to understand is that drawing a circle that's big enough for my parents' UUism and my UUism, a circle big enough for all the flavors of UUism present here at Starr King UU Church, is possible. I need you to understand that this isn't about hating on NPR or classical music. It's about adding new radio bands and new rhythms. I'm dating myself. I should have said new Spotify channels, whatever. It's about creating a mosaic. You know how a mosaic is made, right? From broken pieces. The invitation isn't to throw away my parents' UUism. The invitation is to transform it, to be made new by encounters with different flavors of Unitarian Universalism. You want to know the good news? The good news is you already know how to do this. Because here you are doing multi-platform worship. What? In the before times, would you have willingly traded all of the in-person goings-on of this congregation to do things online instead? All of a sudden, it became painfully clear that change was necessary. If you kept meeting in person, lives would have been at risk. And now that many people can be in person again, you didn't go back to how things were. You expanded your definition of us, and you weren't willing to leave some of us behind. So you kept doing multi-platform worship. You transformed. Now, there's nothing wrong with being drawn toward what is most comfortable, especially right now. But I need you to know that not only do I need transformation, you need transformation and radical welcome. I couldn't believe more strongly that the point of being here, the purpose of being a faith community, is to be changed. Not to be comfy or to rest assured that we are the good ones, but to figure out how to be in relationship, how to be in community, how to be in covenant across lines of deep difference. We deeply need spaces like this one to be places where we can unlearn the judgments and assumptions and biases that have soaked into us from the outside world and practice healing the divisions that are tearing our community and our world and our very souls apart. Because that's the only way we will survive as individuals, as a community, as a species. So some of you are going, what happened with your parents? For the three of you who are thinking about my parents right now, I want you to know that my parents and I have embraced the challenge of being in real relationship. It has not been easy, y'all. It has not been comfortable. We had to get really real and vulnerable with each other and understand each other's struggles. But it's worth it. And we are being changed. You see, when you're in a relationship across lines of difference, it expands your world. What Maleva said earlier is absolutely right. It's not about the words in your new covenant. It's about how you live it. So I hope everyone will take advantage of that RIR workshop this coming Saturday. Recognize, interrupt, repair. Just like Danny and Stephanie showed us at the beginning. It's almost like we planned it that way. Maybe we did. Maybe we're all plants. But this is absolutely how we can live our covenant and be changed with each other across lines of difference. Do you feel that? This is what radical welcome requires of us. It requires us to change and be changed in the process. It requires us not to tolerate or accept people who are different from us and only expand our circles in ways that are comfortable, but to celebrate and love people who are different from us, even when doing so is super uncomfortable, and allow this love to transform us. It requires us to take a leap of faith and risk letting go of things we thought we knew, of things that feel comfortable and familiar, in order to become something so much more. My friends, radical welcome is a tall order. It's not easy. It's not comfortable. And in order to heal our world and ourselves, it's necessary. I believe this is the place where we can practice this, where we can grow, open our hearts, and be changed. So I hope I can count on you to join me in this practice, the spiritual practice of radical welcome, because it is truly one of the most holy, heart-transforming, and life-changing things that we can do together. Amen, Ashe, Aho, and blessed be.